I'm live. Well, good morning. So I'm live when I didn't expect to be live. Isn't that the greatest thing ever? Uh-huh. Wow. Wow. I am live. I am live. Hey, good morning. Good morning. So we're live, right? And it's a good thing. Is it a good thing? I tend to think so. I tend to think so. It's a good thing, right? It's a darned good thing to be live. How about being alive? No, that's an even better thing. And I know they're going to call out my shot and tell me how to do my shot and so on. So we're going to roll with it this morning, right? We're going to roll with it. So how are you guys doing? Great to be here. Great to be back with you after a good weekend. I must say it was pretty warm for a while there, and then it suddenly rained last night. So I guess here in the metro area, in the metro Detroit area, we're going to have some good weather. So I'm hoping that that's the case. Um, it seems like nowadays we don't, I don't know, this is the freakiest summer. We probably haven't had a summer like this since 2017 when it was much better. So I don't know. So we're getting somewhere. But you know what? I'm not going to complain because it's a good thing to look outside and not see white stuff on the ground. I don't know about anyone else, but for me, that's a winner, right? Just to not be able to see white stuff on the ground is absolutely a winner. So I'm just going to be grateful that we don't have white stuff on the ground in Michigan. And it is far off into the future, way too far off into the future for me to think about. No, not today. Not today. I don't care that it's rainy and overcast. The sun will come out tomorrow. It's how I'm going to look at it today. I kid you not. So, how was your weekend? Anybody did anything fun over the weekend? We won't talk about the news because the news happens. But how was your weekend? Did anyone do anything fun? Like I live in Michigan, so the opportunity to go to the beach is minimal, which is something I would have liked doing. And here's the kicker for someone who grew up in a place that was perpetual beach. It's amazing how I live in the Midwest, isn't it? And the northern Midwest, where the nearest beach is driving like 25 miles to the east to go to a place called Kensington Park or something like that. Ew, a friend of mine was there over the weekend, and I'm like, I don't even do that. Right? I like my beach experience to be private. I remember when I was growing up and we used to go to the beach, there was always the public beach. Doctor's Cave Beach, anyone? But I was never really a beach person because I didn't like the feel of the sun on my skin because it would sting and it would burn. And I didn't like the feel of the sand on my skin. And I couldn't handle the sun and it, bearing down on me. But I liked the beach late, early morning and late evening. And so, but I think what I liked about it was being able to look at the sea because the sea is life, right? Being able to look at the sea is life. It's life. It reminded me constantly that life was in perpetual motion and that because life was in motion, things rolled over and rolled and turned around and turned around. And so that's what I miss most about being near the water is because it gives you an opportunity to think as long as this water is moving, things will always move in my direction, right? Right? So you get your comfort and your motivation wherever you get it. I'm a motivational speaker and I'm an author. So, because I'm an author and a motivational speaker, I find inspiration in places that perhaps would not land on you like that, right? So, for me, I had no idea that for years, when I used to sit on my porch and look at the beach and look at the sea, that what I was thinking of, I was committing all of that to memory because there would be days in my existence when I wouldn't see the beach at all. And so for many years, that's all I did. I would just sit on the porch, especially at the end of the day, and just look at the beach, look at the sea. And you could tell when it was going to be stormy, when it was going to rain, and when it was just going to be a peaceful day. And there were so many peaceful days. There were more peaceful days than there are bad days. And I think it says a lot about our lives and our existence. In a lot of ways, we tend to have more peaceful days than bad days. What happens is that the noise of the bad days drown out the peace of the good days. So we tend to hear all the noise and all the sound in the bad days, and it overpowers and overwhelms everything else. But here's the kicker. The kicker is that as the day changes, there comes the night, but joy will come in the morning. The morning cometh. And as long as it keeps moving and it keeps changing, then there will come a change in our circumstances, right? Right. So I had quite the weekend. I'm grateful. I have a headache, but I think that's what do you call a sinus pressure headache, gleaned from just the changing temperature, because it rained overnight, which means that it's going to get a little cooler. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. Here in this part of the world, we're not so sure that we like constant heat. We don't like 90-degree days, and we don't like 80-degree days, right? We don't like that all the time. We like it to change. So today I want to talk about Know Your Faith Is. And I want to talk about it not within the traditional concept of what faith is. We tend to view faith as having affiliation with some sort of a religious experience or some sort of a religious affiliation. We are tied to a religious faith based on our background. That's not how I view faith. I view faith as a belief system. It's a system of belief. So this is what I want to talk about today. What do you believe in? What stuff is your faith made of? Right? Because so many times you come across people who have some sort of belief system. Recently, we've seen a lot of people climbing the Himalayas mountains, climbing Mount Everest. In fact, there was a story on the news a couple weeks ago that there is a traffic jam on Everest, and you saw like about 100 people trying to get to the peak, and you and I are like, what? Say what? When we were growing up, going to Mount Everest was a lifetime achievement. It represented a lifetime goal, something you aspire to. Today, it just seemed as if more people are trying to get there. So it doesn't have the cachet that it would have anymore, because it's just so popular. I mean, everybody can do it, right? Well, I began to try to understand what it is about climbing Mount Everest that made it represent. What did it represent to people? Why were so many people trying to do it? And I started thinking economically that maybe it's more accessible. There are more millionaires in the world today. It costs a lot of money to do it. And there are more people with more time on their hands, right? People have more disposable income. Wealthier people have more disposable income than any other time. They also have a lot more time on their hands. So I started to think maybe they've made it more accessible. Maybe it used to cost, $300,000. Maybe now it's for a bargain at $80,000. So everybody's like, heck, if it's only $80,000, I can put that on my credit card. So I began to think, well, what is it about it that has attracted this seeming traffic jam on something that seems inconceivable? It's very hard to climb Mount Everest. Has anyone ever been on top of a mountain anywhere? I have. I went to Colombia several years ago, and as you know, Bogota, the capital city of Colombia, is 5,000 feet above sea level. So when we landed, it took a while, but after a while you could feel it. It makes you nauseous because the air is so thin and at that height that you're not used to it. It takes some getting used to. I was nauseous and headachy for the first 2 days of a 10-day trip. I could barely make it. I didn't think I was going to make it, right? You couldn't travel, you couldn't walk around. Nothing you ate could stay down. I ate ginger the entire time I was there. And so I learned that the air is so thin and it feels like there's very little oxygen. So your body is struggling to find a way to cope. Now, it's the same thing climbing the Himalayas. Your body is struggling. A lot of people who go there get sick because your body is struggling to cope with the thinner air, the oxygen that you need. So it makes people sick. But what is it about it that is attracting people so much? Why are people so hung up and so hell bent on going there? Well, I discovered that it's an ideal. They say there's nothing quite like it. If you are seeking enlightenment, you get there and you get a new perspective. In our world today, a lot of people don't know what to believe in. A lot of people are struggling with a belief system. They're struggling to find meaning to life. And so, for those who can't afford it, going to the Himalayas, they are told, offers a perspective like no other. It changes your viewpoint when you're swinging over that bridge. Not me, it's not my thing to do. It certainly isn't, so you'll never get me doing that any day now, right? I can fly over it, and that's as close as I'm going to get to it. Climbing up a mountain is not my thing. However, today, a lot of people struggle with what do you believe? People don't know what to believe. Our world has changed. The sexual revolution of the 1960s has produced a generation of people who don't know. Can you call it a sexual revolution? You want to call it a cultural revolution? Okay. But it has produced a generation of people who don't know what to believe. People don't worship in traditional spaces anymore, such as churches, especially if they're Christian. And in our world today, our culture is now immersed in different forms of belief. So there are more Buddhists, right? People who believe in Buddha. There are more people who are Muslim who believe in Allah, which is another name for God. It's the Muslim form, Muslim religion, Islam, right? And so what happens is people are struggling to find meaning. And in struggling to find meaning, what they're coming across is, I don't know what to believe. So they're seeking these way out experiences that is dictating to them, well, what do you believe? Right? So what we're finding is that people are like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know if I believe in this. There's so many things trying to compete for my attention. What is it that I should believe? Well, people are searching for faith, but they do have faith. They just don't know where to place it. They don't know where to put that faith. They don't know where the faith belongs, because they've been told that having faith is only having faith in God, and that you can only do so within a confined space that is called a church. And if you're not in a church, then you don't have faith. So people are looking for the meaning of life. And what I'm finding is that we have allowed our traditional modalities, our traditional ways of thinking, to influence how we feel about how we should feel about what we believe, such as because you grew up, let's say you grew up in a church where the pastor was always preaching fire and brimstone. Well, guess what? One day you're going to wake up and say, oh, well, guess what? I sinned. I guess he's going to call down fire and brimstone on me. Guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not ever going to go back to a church. That's the traditional way of thinking. So what people are looking for now is meaning. So my question is, do you believe in something? Chances are you do. You do believe in something. You believe in your paycheck. You believe that when you get up this morning, you did believe that you would wake up this morning. Number two, you did believe you would start your car. You would turn on a switch in your house and the lights would come on, right? You believe you would start your car and it would ignite. If you turn the remote on, the TV would come on, right? Right? You believe that if you send your kids out today, they're going to come back to you later. Your spouse leaves, you're going to come back home, right? So you have some sort of faith then. But what is missing is, what is your faith in? So my challenge is to ask you, what stuff is your faith made of? Because the thing that I'm finding is, as I look around the world today, not just here in America, but I am looking at other cultures. How do other cultures worship? How do other cultures dispose of their faith? What do people in these other cultures believe today, not what they believed 100 years ago, because that is the history. I can go find that out. But what is current for them today? And what I'm finding is that people are struggling, just like here, people are still struggling to find the meaning of life. You know what it comes down to? One of the reasons that we still go and we still believe in God is this. Guess what? There has to be purpose to my existence, right? And the purpose to my existence is that there is a creator. Somebody made this. This didn't come from a big bang. Planets didn't come together and collide. Otherwise, planets will still be colliding, creating galaxies and so on. And the fact that I exist, and then I've lived long enough to see that people who existed alongside me no longer exist. And that is key. Watch where we're going, right? Watch where we're going. And that there are people still to come, because people still getting married, people are still having children. So those people are still to come. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you look at what my faith is made of, it's a firm belief that things will change, that things will turn around. But who is the architect? It's a firm belief that there has to be a continuity that connects me from the past to the future. The problem we're having, the crisis we're experiencing in faith, is that we have disconnected people from that continuity. We have made it seem that what happened in the past is no longer significant, and it has no relevance to the moment and no relevance to the future. So people don't know what to believe. People don't know what stuff they're made of. They don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. Is there going to be tomorrow? Is there going to be a tomorrow after tomorrow's tomorrow? What's going to happen? People don't know, because we have ridiculed and discarded the continuity of belief. And so when people wake up, they grow up, they go to college, they get married, they leave college, they start working, they get to a certain age when they're married, children, and then they start saying, well, what is the purpose of life? Because when I was growing up, I thought my purpose was getting a job. I thought my purpose was being a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, an engineer. My purpose was being a talk show host, an author, a speaker. So having achieved that, what's next? What is the purpose? It can't just be that I go back to school, get a third degree. It can't just be that I get another promotion on the job. It can't just be that. What is the purpose of my existence? Well, what we have done is summarily said that the past is irrelevant. So whatever people believed in 100 years ago, 150 years ago, is irrelevant in light of today's technology. So we idolize and worship today's technology. We worship the currency of the day, the currency of our belief system, the currency of the happenings today, the situations today. And what we have done is created a vacuum. What is the future and what is the past? So then our faith is the connection, is what connects the dots. Our faith is what brings the past into the present as it rides on into the future. This is why the Bible says, no, faith is. It doesn't say the past. The Bible was written over 2,000, the current version of the Bible was only like 600 years old, the English version of it. But those words were written almost 2,000 years ago. And it said the translation, the Aramaic translation says, now. Faith is. Now. That's the key. So when we talk about what do you believe, your belief has to be in the now. So what connects your belief? What is the assurance that what you believe is real and will continue? It's the connection from the past that assures us that there is a future. Right? Absolutely. So when you put it all together, the question then becomes, well, what do you believe? It's rhetorical because you ask yourself that. Well, you tend to, when someone asks you that, you tend to regurgitate and repeat what you've learned. So tradition, what you have experienced, tradition, influenced by tradition. But what do you really believe? What do you really believe? I challenge you to examine that. And what you're going to find is that you have a disconnect between your experiences and what you've been taught. I grew up I went to a Catholic high school, right? So that was an important part of my religious exposure, right? I also grew up around people who I grew up in traditional church settings. I mean, people went to church every Sunday. My family were religious people. They owned a church. They were part of the execution and the governing of churches. So I've been around that all of my life. When I was when I became a young woman, I walked away from it because I wanted to see what the world was like. A world that was not bordered by religiosity, right? And so I experienced that. And then I found out that there were some things in life that were inexplicable, that could not be explained. As I grew up, people started dying around me, and I had to wonder about the continuity of existence. I had a serious issue with understanding that. And I found that I actually believed it. And I'm like, well, where did that belief come from? So let me go find out. And then I had answers. I wanted answers to questions I had from I was a kid in school, and my religious teachers could not elaborate or couldn't tell me exactly where the answers were or what the answers are. So I had a search for it. What I was searching for was the meaning of my existence. And it became a challenge for me. And I mean, it's a challenge for all of us. Once you have achieved the goals that you set out for yourself, you tend to ask yourself, now what? My daughter wanted to go to law school, right? And her goal was to become an attorney. She has a long-term goal of working in political fields and so on. But now that she's graduated law school, I find her saying, now what? I have this goal that I want to get to. I have a plan to get to it. Now I need to walk through this to get to it. Now what? And we found that it was something that a lot of people are asking themselves, now what? So this is why you see people going to the extremes. What they're searching for is meaning to their existence. People are looking for their bungee jumping off a building, testing the limits of their existence, the limits of their endurance, testing is if there really is a God out there, he's going to catch me, right? If there really is a God out there, he's not going to let anything bad happen to me, right? And the forever questions we ask, well, if there is a God, why do bad things happen? Like just this morning on Facebook, we all saw the story breaking, where in one county here in Michigan, Genesee County, they arrested like 29 people, one of whom was accused of sexually assaulting a 2-year-old child. Sexual assault is not the same thing as rape. Sexual assault is touching inappropriately, right? Right? Rape is sexual penetration, and they will describe it, criminal sexual conduct, including penetration. They'll describe it, right? So when you look at those things, you say to yourself, well, is there a God? Really? Then how come all these bad things happen? God is not really in charge of the world. That's what the Bible says. Satan really is. So if that is the case, then that explains quite carefully what happens. But nobody wants to hear that because it's not politically correct. Just like the Bible talks about what is freedom. Freedom is being free in Christ. Freedom is having the freedom to think, but nobody wants to talk about that because that's not politically correct. But the answers to the questions are found therein in your experiences. Listen, we have to come to the place where we accept that there are some things that will remain forever. What I have found is that God is not, it doesn't change. I kid you not. When I look at it, people who lived 1,000 years ago no longer are alive today, but we're still talking about God. People who wrote books 1,500 years ago, they're no longer alive today, but we're still talking about God. So to me, that is the evidence that God is eternal. So if I were questioning that answered that for me. How about you? Can I answer your questions? There's some things we have to, I think there's a point at which the point that we fear the most is this, that intersection where our humanity comes in contact with divinity, called death. That's what we fear the most. And we fear that if we encounter death, we won't live anymore. We don't exist anymore. You see what I mean? So coming to that, we fear that because we realize you have no control, because none of the people we know who have died have come back. No matter how much money they had, no matter how famous they were, no matter how glorious they were, and their days were filled with all sorts of wonderful things, they don't come back and say, hey, this is what it's like on the other side. And that is what we have to come to grips with. If we can wrap our minds around the fact that this too shall pass, then we're okay with believing what we believe. In much the same way that we question and I'm raising the questions, I'm echoing the questions because I've heard them. But there has to be, if there is one thing humanity needs, it's a constancy of belief, a continuity that connects all our lives, that connects our lives from the past into the present. If you have any sort of belief system, you have faith in that. I believe tomorrow is going to be a better day. I believe today is a better day. It already happened. So my faith and my belief in this is based, I can back that up with a scripture. Yeah, that's what they say, right? But I can also back that up experientially. Now, I can't talk about the future too much because I have not lived in the future. The future is yet happen. It's happening. This is the present. The present is the guide. The present is the continuity. It's that middle space. The past gives you a guide to what the future is. If we can look at the past and not repeat the mistakes of the past, chances are we can build a better future. But the present, this is the gift. This is what you have right now. This is the gift. Utilize it to create a better future. There are some things that we will rock this universe with that will never be satisfactorily answered, because we tend to think of God and Jesus and Christian beliefs in terms of what? Finalities. We tend to think of them as the past. That's what my grandparents worshipped. That was how my parents worshipped. That has nothing to do with now. And so we don't see that, much like the society changes, the nature, the methods change just the same. And that's where we're stuck. We're stuck on the methodology. It's not the nature of God that changes. It's what? It's the methodology. He uses different tools in different ages. Read the Bible. Look at human history. Different tools, different systems, different applications in different seasons. In today's world, for instance, the traditional way of thinking, you think traditionally in terms of finitism. I mean, it's either black or white. Once upon a time, it was black or white. Today, you begin to look at it and you're saying, why didn't we think of this before? It's much like in today's world, whilst the Bible still speaks about what fundamental marriage is between a man and a woman. They've looked at all the translations and so on to see if anything was lost in the translation. Clearly not. But in the reality of today's world, the reality justifies the existence that there must be something that God has accepted about it. Not that he agrees with it, but he accepts it, which is where our free will comes from. Are you seeing what I'm saying? We confuse the issue because what we're saying is it can't. But at the same time, people have free will. And guess what? They are going to exercise their free will. And they're going to do it over and over. So what happens? Do you think that God just sits up there and says, I'm going to cast fire and brimstone on everybody? No, that's what the judgment is for. When it comes to the judgment, it's going to be, hey, dude, what's up? Hey, girl, what's up? How did it go? Well, that's all that's going to go. You see what I mean? So we now have to put all of that together. And now we have to come to the conclusion that now faith is. We have to believe in something now. Whether you choose to believe that the sky will always be blue, that's entirely up to you based on your observations, based on your experiences, based on your foreknowledge, what you know, your intellectualism, and how you want to dispose of that body of thought. Because what you're finding now is that your belief system is an entire thought process. What has happened to a lot of people is that we just went in and you got inculcated into tradition and you didn't apply any thought to it. Now that you are thinking, it's a different reality. You're facing a different reality. And the reality you're facing is you're questioning it. I encourage you to question it, yes, because the answers will come. Because the greatest part of you is going to be when you derive the answers yourself. You'll have obvious clarity. It's going to clear up all the images, and you will then know exactly what you need to do. So when the time comes and you have to defend your belief or defend your faith, you will know on what ground you stand on. The songwriter says, "On Christ, the solid rock I stand." Well, is your rock solid? What do you stand on? What do you believe? No matter what I do, no matter where I go, I have a firm belief in what I believe. There's some things that won't change for me. I am firm on that. So whatever comes, okay, but this is what I believe. Okay? So it won't change for me because I have tested it. I've tried it. I tested it. And because I tested it, I'm sure of it. That is the place where your faith hits the road. And when it hits it, you now know exactly why you believe what you believe. And now somebody else with a differing opinion won't shake you because now you know for sure. It's much like you buy a car, right? Your choice of motor vehicles, you believe in a Ford product. Somebody else believes in GM, but you're pretty sure that Ford does not mean found on road dead. So you're not going to buy, you're going to buy your Ford product because you're pretty sure every morning when you go click it, it's going to click back at you, right? That's firm belief. Somebody else may buy something else, a Jaguar or something, and you may click it one day and it just goes, it's dead, right? And you're all laughing, been there. We've all been there, right? But now you are sure though, that you will continue to buy a Ford product because every time you go click, it clicks right back at you. That's firm. Nobody can shake you from that, right? And so as you think about your faith, as you think about going through this, as you think about what is it that you believe in, how the structure of your belief is founded on, spend time on answering, on trying to develop yourself. Why do I believe this? Is it because it's what I was taught? Well, what has my experience been? And when you have discovered what your experience is, that is the greatest answer because you will get the answer. It's not drama. It's not magic. It's not a myth. You will obtain the answer because the answers to what you believe is right within you. You've experienced it all the time. And I'm saying that because we are in a time when we don't even know where we stand. I mean, 1 minute we're here, 1 minute we're over there. Different people. I find people today are very middle of the road. Have you found that? I mean, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they referred to it as political correctness. I don't even know if they still use that term today. Is it still fluid? Is that term still fluid? It's their fear. Oh boy. Yes, right? Somebody's saying it's something else, right? But is that term still used, political correctness? Are people still thinking politically correct? I'm not even sure. I'm not even really sure, right? But nowadays people tend to, have you noticed, political leaders, people who are social activists, civil leaders, have you noticed that they don't want to offend anyone. So they won't say, even when something is glaringly wrong, they will not say it's glaringly wrong. They tend to make it sound as if that is someone, and it irritates me. It irritates me. I'm like, stand up for something, believe in something, right? Believe in something. Stand up for what you believe in. What you're finding today is people prefer to stay in the road because they tend to think if they stay in the road, then it won't offend anyone. It won't offend the community and it won't offend anyone in the community. So they're going to stay right here. Now, is that necessarily wrong? No, that's not necessarily wrong either. They're actually standing for something by not taking a stand at all. It's like a girl asking a guy to take her out. And he says, well, I don't take out people, whatever. Well, by not answering, he's taking a stand. You ask people to take a stand and they don't, that's a stand nonetheless. They may not want to say that that's their stand, but that's what their actions determine. And so people today are, because of the history of shakedowns and the history of violence and the history of taking a stand and what it means, people today tend to not want to do that. They tend to want to just stay in the middle of the road somewhere, right? And I don't know that's not a bad thing. But my thing is, when it comes down to the moment, you have to know deep in here what you know, and that what you know is unshakable. And that what you know, so some of the trials and stuff, some of the issues that you have faced were all designed to create within you a desire to discover what do you really believe in. Because at the end of the day, it's you. At the end of the day, it's all you. It's you all day, every day. I kid you not. I found that to be true myself. I had to figure out, well, what do I believe in? At the end of the day, it was all about me and what I believe in. At the end of the day, it is this that I am sure of. What do you really believe? I posted a picture this morning, and in that picture, I captioned it that picture was taken 2 years ago, right? And at that point, I had to learn to walk by faith all over again. I thought I had this thing down pat. And I had to go figure out, well, what do you really believe? Because a situation had occurred that challenged the very foundation of what I believed. And so I had to say, well, what do you believe? And I found that I believed in a system that was unchanging, that did not exist in the current time space that I believe that I am living in. And that system was eternal. And I didn't agree with their way of doing things, but that's how the cookie rolls. That's how the cookie crumbles, right? And once I got to that point, I have to say, now faith is, oh my God, that was not a nice place to be. But sometimes we find ourselves. So what happens is when you find yourself in these situations and you ask yourself, because these things are happening to people every day. You send your child to school and your child doesn't come back home. They take you down to the morgue to identify the remains of your child. That's the child whom this morning got up, got dressed out of your home, out of your love. That's the child who came out of your womb, out of your loins. That's the child who they're now telling you is laid up on a slab in a morgue. That is enough to challenge your belief system. Our spouses come into our lives. They leave. They tell you one day, I don't feel like being married anymore. That's a person who said they would love you forever. What do you believe? You go to work. You've given 20 years here. You've given them 5 years of your best years. And then they tell you they don't want you anymore. What do you believe? First, you have to start by believing in yourself. You have to have a connection. Everyone must have a spiritual connection. That's your connection. Connect to what you believe in. Regardless of what it is, connect to it. Therefore, I connect to God in Christianity. That's what I believe in. I don't know if that's your experience, but that's been mine. I can only tell you what happened in my experience that caused me to connect to it. So that no matter how the foundation under me shakes, the ground on which I walk, the stuff that makes up comprise my life up to this moment, when it shifts and it shakes, I still have to cling to the unchanging nature. Let me tell you a story. My mother died 2 years ago, which fundamentally shook my existence because my grandmother is still alive. So I didn't think my mother would die before my grandmother. Do you see what I'm saying? My grandmother is 96. My mother was only 72. I could not believe such a thing could happen. Just when I started walking out of it, my father died. Do you know what I felt like? I felt like an orphan. I felt like they had taken me to the bus station and they dropped me off and they both got on the bus or the train and kept it moving and left me standing there like, I can't believe you both left me. And this happened, my father died in February. So I'm a full adult. I have my own life. Why did it affect me? Because it affected my belief. It's a good thing I found out that I knew in whom I believed. You know, when they called me to tell me my father had passed, the first thought that came to my mind was Psalm 27. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Had I not known God, I would have been a basket case. No, it still affected me because I didn't work out for 2 months. I found that I could not work out. I had no energy. It sent me into a spiral. Luckily, I had the tools, so when I felt it, I knew how to connect back to my continuity of my existence. So I gained weight because I didn't work out. I didn't eat anymore. I ate fish. For 2.5 months, I could not eat anything but fish. Like, I kid you not. Just couldn't work out, right? And so I had to say, well, this is the residue. I'm saying all of that. I'm being transparent because the truth is what took me through it was my faith in whom I believed. It kept me grounded, kept me so that I could look at life and death within the confines of my human experience. I have a limited experience. I have a finite lifetime, just like my parents did. Now, my dad lived a long time. And my mother lived she did her 70. So I had to say to myself, they did what they were sent here to do. And their time is past. They're in forever land. That's what I tell myself. Whenever the thought comes to me about where my parents are, I tell myself they're in forever land. Right? I just said they're in forever land. They live in forever now. They're in forever land. That's how I deal with it. But that's my challenge. What about you? And what about what happens to you? How do you process? How do you deal with it? This is why I'm preparing you. You have to be prepared because when it comes, you have to know what you believe in. You have to have a thought process that exists somewhere that when it happens, you can say, well, this is how I think, this is what I believe, and I'm going to hold on and cleave to that nonetheless. And I am the preacher. Life still happens. How many people do you think who believe have still stood over graves of their young children? Happens more than you know. How many people, despite what you believe, have stood at the bedside of people whom they love, their spouses, their parents, their friends, lifelong friends? It happens more than you know. So the question I'm asking you is, what do you believe? It's something you have to settle. It's something you have to know beyond the shadow of a doubt. You have to settle that. And you're going to settle that based on your experience. Had I not had the experience of reading Psalm 27, I would never have known that it could apply on a day in February. They woke me up to tell me that my father had passed. And suddenly, I realize that I'm alone. I'm an orphan. I have neither somebody to say, hey, somebody to whom I belong to. I am someone's child. The people who would call me their child, their lips and their mouths are forever silenced. Not somebody who is going to say, there goes my daughter. That's my child. What do you believe? That was my challenge. And I had to answer, I believe in God. I believe that God is. Psalm 27 became real time for me. Now, what do you believe? You have to answer that. That's a question. You have to be satisfied that you know it, so that when stuff comes along, when it comes and it comes, then you know what ground to stand on, because it happens, and it happens quickly, and it happens overnight, and it happens so fast and so furious, you don't even know, you don't have time to quantify or time to process. But you have an experience that somewhere when it happens, it comes, it falls right into place, and it says now. Now. And that's what faith is. It's a question of now. The Bible describes faith as the substance of things hoped for. But you know what gets me? The evidence of things not seen. Well, what is that evidence? It took me years and years to figure that out. The evidence of things not seen. Evidence. What is the evidence? The things you believe in, the things you're hoping for, the things you fear, the things you hope will come to pass, the things you want to happen. That's the evidence. But the evidence, listen carefully, does not come before the belief. You have to believe first, then you will see the evidence. So whatever you're going through right now, whatever it is that you have to face, know that now faith is. Believe, therefore. Believe that it will change, that it will turn around. Just as the winds come. When we started this broadcast, it was raining. It stopped. It changes overnight. My prayer for you is that it will be an overnight change. That whatever you're going through that needs to pass quickly, it will happen sooner than you think, in the blinking of an eye. Now faith is gather your thoughts, corral your thoughts. When bad things are happening around us, we tend to just go crazy with crazy thoughts, panic. And in the midst of the panic, you can't focus. And then you become irritable because you realize you're missing something. You're missing, what do you believe? What do you want out of this? What is the best possible outcome? Believe. Now is the time. Whatever you're working on, now is the time. Attach your now to it. Attach your faith to it. Put a demand on it. Put your faith on it and demand that it must work together for your good. You know, the other day I was somewhere and somebody, these things happen. Somebody started talking to me, and I don't know how the story began to develop, but they asked me questions. And I said to them that if you really want to know more about being a Christian, the best place to go to is Romans, the book of Romans. And he said, why is that? I said, Romans is a Christian roadmap. It's a roadmap to how to live. And if you can read that and find comfort within those words, you'll be just fine. And he said, well, somebody else says to start with the book of John. I said, yeah, but the book of John is theology. It's going to hit you. You need a basis first to understand the book of John. So I suggest you start by reading the book of Romans. It's very simple. We'll tell you straight up what to do. So if you're struggling right now and you have a thought and you want to know, go find the book of Romans. Romans, the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, right? Find it and read it, and you'll discover what now is. It's some stuff. It's deep stuff. I know this morning was a bit deep and it's Monday and so on, but it's something that now was it was just in me all weekend long, and I couldn't shake it. I didn't want to talk about it, honestly, but I couldn't shake it. And I know it's not going to be one of my most popular viewings, because people are like, I got preached to a church yesterday. I don't want to hear anymore about having faith. And the way they present it, the way they present it to, it's almost as if you don't have faith, then you don't have, if your faith doesn't give you the returns that I have, then it's not faith at all. That's not true. Each person is given a certain measure of faith. And a lot of those people who are preaching faith, they already know they're going to collect $1 million by the end of the day on Sunday. So that's not faith. They know if they say this and reach people's emotionalism, it will act up. That's not faith at all. To each is given a measure of belief. How much is based on you, your experiences? How do you quantify it? Based on what your capacity is. Everybody has a capacity. Their capacity might be greater than your capacity is. Sometimes we're stretched in ways to determine what our capacity will be. Right? So never judge your walk by someone else. It's not fair to you because you haven't been subjected to the same experiences. It's very different, right? It's not fair to you because you don't face what they have faced. They haven't faced what you have faced. And chances are, if the tables were turned, none of you could survive in the other's environment. So never judge your life based on someone else. It's very easy to sit back and say, well, I don't have his results and I'm doing the same thing. Well, what has his walk been like? What were the conditions under which he had to survive? What were the conditions under which you had to live? So it's not fair. It's individualized. Trust the process. My daughter showed me a meme the other day that said, I don't know how much more of trusting the process I can do because it's getting stressful. That is the place at which you are broken the most and stretched the most. That's where your capacity increases. It's not nice. It's not feel good. It's not going to make you run out of here and go, and get excited. But it is a truism that you will find. I don't like it. I didn't like it when I was going through it. I definitely don't like it now. But it's a fact I can't overcome or overlook. I can't ignore it. It is what it is. And I think that's, as most people, what they choose to do is they don't want you to feel like you have to do this, or because they want you to feel good about it, because they want you to come back next week and give them some more money. Maybe because I'm not collecting money from you, I tell you the truth. You think that's what it is? That's why they use me this way. So I tell the truth in spite of, right? And then they will reward me later. I don't know, right? But I certainly hope for you that you will experience your capacity and that your capacity will not exceed your troubles. And that within that, there will be comfort and that there will be guidance. Now faith is, what's the stuff of your faith, right? What's the stuff? What is it made of? What is it made of? It's individualized. Some people lost a baby. We don't always know the stories behind someone's glory. We tend to look upon their shining faces as they stand for the cameras, and that's what we want. We think that that's it. But we don't know behind the scenes. We don't know the pain. We don't know the discomfort. We don't know the uncertainties that they've had to live with. Now, faith is the substance. Go find your substance. Make it happen. You believe that you were called to bake cakes and put them out in Kroger or wherever. Go find your substance. Put that flour and that oil and that sugar and that butter together. Start making some cakes. Go find your substance. Now, faith is the substance. It's the evidence. Well, what's the evidence? The first time you put it in a Kroger, that's the evidence. That's the evidence. So I had faith over here, but here's the evidence. When I first started, all I had was a dream, nothing else. I didn't even look like it was going to happen. First of all, there was nothing. I didn't think it could happen. All I had was a dream. But the dream was what? The evidence that it could happen. All I had to do was dream it. I saw a physical dream in which I saw the books. I saw myself on stages. I saw myself behind TV screens. I saw myself with radio microphones on. I saw myself being interviewed and people clipping on microphones. That was the evidence. So I went out and did it. Then I found the continuity that connected the past to the future, because that's all it was. The dream is the future. Hello. The dream was the future. So the present didn't look like it, but the present was the gift to the future. Do you see what I'm saying? So the dream is the future. The evidence is the dream. The things hoped for, the books, every one of them. Then they happened. Now faith is. And for 8 years that I tried to publish my first book, for 8 years, that's all I had was now faith is. Now faith is. Now faith is. Now faith is. Had nothing else but that until it became a reality. So my question to you is, don't give up. It may not have happened yet, but it is going to happen. Don't quit. Don't give up. You're looking at now faith is. Every day that I live, it's faith. I'm walking by faith. Someday I'll tell you the stories of the present right now. But right now, all I have is faith. Faith is the substance. I'm not done yet. I have way more things to do. They're still there. They will happen. Right? Because now I have the experience, which is the foundation that guarantees that those things that I dream of will come to pass. So I challenge you. Now faith is, make it happen for you. Go out and do it. Stand tall. They laughed at me. They made fun of me. They snickered. They thought they had it together. They thought they were the real things. People thought they had the right backgrounds. They had the right equipment. They had the right everything. None of those were quintessential to getting the job done. But I got it done. I kept the mark. Stay true to your course. And I wasn't entirely always faithful, because some days you're human. You want to give up because the stress, the complexities when it comes down on you. Now faith is, right? Any questions? So now faith is. So now what you're going to do? You're going to go out and create. You're going to go out, now that you know it answers your questions. Go out and do it. I want to see it. I want to see your success. I want to see you achieving it. And I want to see you learning the answer to these questions so that now you can, because now you know. Nothing like knowing that you know. It gives you a different walk. It gives you a different feel. No matter when it's shaking and looks uncertain around you, this too shall pass. Right? Right. Thanks so much, everybody. It's Monday. Go out and live. Now faith is. Go out and live. Go out and do it. And do it till you can't no more. You know that song on the Old Town Road? I'm going to ride till I can't no more. Go out and do it and do it and do it and do it. Take authority over it. Corral your thoughts. Sit down and figure it out. And when you have figured it out, get up and walk like a champion. Talk like a champion. Be a champion. Let it be and let it rip. Come on out. Come on out. Now faith is. Everything that you know about me that I stand for. Now faith is. They didn't give it to me. You know my story. I wasn't rich. I wasn't born rich. Nobody handed me a platform or handed me a plaque. They fought and fought. I had to tear at it and fight and tear at it. People fought me on every side, just like the Bible says. I mean, they fought me on every side. There were snakes in the grass. There were snakes around me. People fought, people pushed. You'd be surprised at the people who did it. Rich man, poor man, bigger man, thief. Everybody fought and fought and fought. And people snicker and they sit down in little groups and they make fun and they laugh. You know what they were doing? They were just fueling the mission because I didn't quit. Today I stand, and they have to look up. Yeah, they're still where they are. But today, you know where I am? Way up here, looking down. Like, I did it. And what's your story? You're still sitting where you were sitting. What's your story? Now faith is. Get up and do it. Be the champion you're born to be. Be what you're called to do. Get up and do it. Do it. Yes. Go try. Hey, come on. You know what is the difference between successful people? They never quit. Keep doing it. So what if you miss the mark? Start it over and do it again and again. Did you think Edison came up with this formula by himself? We don't know. We do know it was George Washington Carver who did that. Hey, so let Edison shut up. He probably went somewhere and saw it, right? But do you think he quit? No. Get up and do it over and over. Now faith is exercise it. Your faith is like a muscle. The more you try it, is the more it becomes expendable and it stretches. Do it. Do it. Go after it and do it. Now faith is. Stretch it and stretch it and stretch it and stretch it till you get what you want out of it. Stretch the universe. Holler if you want to. But do it. But do it. Don't quit. Don't give up. Now faith is. They may call you crazy. And they may say so in the moment. But you know what? History is going to have your name on it. There is that. Now faith is. You keep pulling it out of me, baby. I got to go. I got stuff to do. It's 11 o'clock on a Monday. We got stuff to do. Go live your life out. Now faith is. Amen? Amen. Be blessed, everybody. I got to go. Be blessed. Thank you so much. Be blessed, everybody. Now faith is. Now faith is. Yeah, now faith is. Now faith is. The substance. Now faith is. This thing is tricking me today.